Okay, so I'll probably do a video on just how ArtFight's gone for the general participants and some of the discussion topics that arose during the season. But for now, I wanted to focus on how my season went, all of the things I've learned, and maybe tell you my stats at the end of this, so do stick around if you want to hear about that. But I feel like ArtFight for me was a lot different this year just because of the things that I was doing pre-season that ended up changing the way that I do ArtFight. This year for me was a lot of firsts. This was the first time that I really had a large audience and was constantly talking about ArtFight before the season. This was the first season when I wasn't last minute planning for all of my references. This was the first season where I had an iPad, so I was mostly planning to do all of my attacks through my iPad just so I could learn and practice using that instead of my phone all the time. This was the first season that I did animated attacks, as I was also learning Toon Squid, and this year I've done the most attacks that I've ever done in any ArtFight season that I've participated in my 5 years of being in ArtFight. So a bunch of firsts, even though I'm not necessarily new to this event. It was definitely kind of surprising. Again, I think what changed the most for me was my pre-planning, mostly because I was talking about ArtFight long before the season started. I think my first ArtFight video discussing this season was in January when I was talking about some of the fun things to do with your character profiles, and I was doing a lot of prepping and planning before the season started, because what usually happens for me is I wait till the last minute and then scrounge to get everything done. But I found that this year that wasn't the case for me. I only added a handful of characters, and it was sporadically before the season started, so I wasn't stressing as much. I anticipated that because my audience has grown a lot bigger, that I would be doing a lot more attacks than I usually did, but I wasn't ready for the actual numbers. I was certain that I wasn't going to burn out. I already had everything planned in advance, my hit list, and all of the things that I wanted to practice, animated attacks, and just general drawing on my iPad. So when the season actually started, I just got to work with my original hit list, and boy was I not ready. The first week of ArtFight is when everyone's kind of jumping onto the platform, and I feel like with the excess of people this year, that was especially the case. I was getting attacks left and right, and I think a lot of my attack ratio sort of dwindled during this period of time, and that's why it was so hard for me to get back up for the rest of the season. And I would wake up every morning and I'd see a new one and I'd be like, no! I usually attack everyone back, and that's not necessarily a rule given thing. It's not an art exchange event, it is a gifting event, but I find that I always want to give people the same joy that they gave me, so it's regardless, I want to revenge everyone that I can. So that's always been what I do every year. But this year, it was so hard to keep up. And within the first week, I'd already had a bunch of revenges lined up, and I was still finishing everyone on my hit list at the time, so I was pretty overwhelmed. By the time we'd neared mid-month, I had a bunch of real-life circumstances that pulled me away from actually doing anything, at least pumping out the art that I wished I could during that period of time. Oh my gosh, it was so difficult trying to do everything through just my iPad, because with my phone it was really convenient and I could draw basically whenever I want. But since I'd focused on solely practicing for my iPad, there was limited amounts of time when I could actually do anything for ArtFight, and so that was pretty stressful. But again, that was a limit I put onto myself, so there's no one to really blame here but me. Even though I wasn't doing as many attacks as I could have, I was still trying to consistently do art, and I was within 4 window periods doing maybe 4-ish attacks per week, maybe even a little bit more than that nearing the end of the season. When we got to the last week of the season or so, that's when I really started to lock in, and by that time I was doing maybe 4 to 6 attacks per day. And I was doing animated attacks sporadically through the beginning half of the season, but as I was piling up more and more revenges, I just couldn't do as many animated attacks anymore, so it was around this time that I didn't really do anymore. I think my last one was number 19, so I did 19 animated attacks this year, again, just tween stuff in Toon Squid for, practice's sake. And I'd usually be doing them in the middle of the night too, and at this time I didn't get as many attacks. What I'm going to discuss later in a separate video is how a lot of people experienced a dry season this year, and I wanted to talk about that a little because I could see what people meant. But I was in the trenches at this point in time, so I wasn't really focused on that. I was trying, guys. The day before the event was about to end, I told myself I would wake up early just so that way I could get in all of the attacks I needed to, and then I slept in because I stayed up too late doing revenges. So I was frantically trying to revenge as many people as I could, and I think in the final day I did 9 attacks. But still, that was not enough, and I missed 9 people, and I'm still pretty bummed out about that. My ratio is fine, because again, I had chosen a different hit list besides people with just revenges, so my ratio is still at 50%, which is the same as it is every year, and that was one of my goals, was to keep it at 50% at least. I wasn't sure if I was even going to make it this year, but that was really in the last few hours that I was able to get it back up to a 50% ratio. That's kind of how my season went. It was very hectic, and now that we've reached the end of the video, I can actually talk, my stats. So this year in particular, I've done 70 attacks in total, and my defenses were 69, so I did beat out the ratio by 1 attack. And I've never done 70 attacks before. The season right before this, I did 22, the year before that, 22 as well, and my ratios were fine throughout those, and I feel like with the additional audience and me discussing ArtFight this year really made a difference in the amount of visibility I had this season, and it was crazy. It was really crazy, and I'm very thankful to everyone who attacked me this year. If you were one of the 9 that didn't get an attack from me, know you were on my hit list. I will get you back, and I'm still really bummed out about that because usually I'm really good with getting in everyone that I want to revenge and also doing a little bit extra, but this year that was just not the case, and it's a mix of circumstances, but it's a bummer. My general ratio went down really bad by 4% this year. Originally, before the season started, it was at a 58 ratio, and we got back down to a 54, so I dropped 4% because of this event. It's still at least a little bit above 50, and that's enough for me. Alright, I can live with that. Even though I wasn't doing as many attacks in the mid-season, I still was doing consistently a lot more attacks than I have any year ever that I've participated in ArtFight, and I don't know, that was just kind of crazy to me. I didn't realize how many attacks I was doing until the season actually ended and went and calculated those numbers, and I know that's not crazy. I think to most people there are some who are consistently pushing out attacks, and either way, I'm pretty proud of myself. I did get pretty far. As a conclusion, yeah, ArtFight was really different for me this year. And again, that's because of a lot of the extra pre-season stuff that had happened. This year I didn't really get to explore as much when it came to how I was doing my attacks, so a lot of them are just bust shots or animated bust shots, and that's about it. I do wish I had more time for these, and I'm looking at my last year's revenges, and I think they were a lot more creative, which again is a bummer, but I still wanted to attack everyone back, so I'm not too worried about that. And I think for next year, I don't know if it'll be the same as it was this year, because there's also the fact that there's a lot of extra new players that were coming in specifically this year, similar to 2023. So we'll just have to see. Hopefully I can get everybody back, and to those 9 people again, I will get you. You're on my list. And now that we're at the end of this video, I can finally talk my actual character stats, because I added a lot of characters and updated a lot of profiles. That's only because I'd been doing them long before the season started, so I wasn't as stressed about adding characters this year. And there's also the fact that I already have a lot of my important central characters already on the platform that have been there for like years at this point. A lot of my newer characters were attacked at the beginning of the year, and as the time went on, a lot of the characters that usually had a lot of attacks ended up taking most of the defense ratio. So, very cool. And yeah, there was a lot of different characters that were attacked this year in comparison to my other ones, because there's usually favorites that I keep in mind. And I've been tracking my character stats within these past 3 years just to see how they line up. But this year, again, a lot more numbers because a lot more people are attacking me. I was anticipating one character to get the most attacks this year, and that's because last year it was the exact same thing, and I think the year before that, but I'm not really sure. I think my most attacked character, again, taking the crown, is Goob with 14 attacks, which is great. She's my favorite, and I love seeing all of the really cute attacks because there were so many really talented people who gave me attacks, and I'm very grateful to all of you, and you're so nice. And again, I'm so sorry if I didn't get to you this year. I've been thinking about it, and it's driving me crazy. Goob takes first. I think a lot of people tied for second with maybe 6 attacks, so Goob ate up most of the attacks. I guess as my final message, if you didn't get the exact same numbers as I did when it came to ArtFight this year, don't be discouraged, especially if you're a newer player. I feel like my first 2 years were very, very small in comparison, and we've sort of been building up this slope within the past 5 years to the point that we're at today. Because my first 2 years of ArtFight, my first year I got 6. The year after that I got 4. And then we jumped into a little bit of higher numbers as time went on. And again, there's also the extra bonus that I do a lot of ArtFight related videos, and those tended to be really popular before the season started, so my username was already out there. So again, don't be discouraged. And I do hope that even if your ArtFight was small, that it was still a fun event for you. I do want to talk about some of the general things that went on this season in terms of discussion and agreed upon moments within the season itself, so that will be my next video. Besides that, I'm so sorry that I haven't been uploading recently. Again, I was really locked into ArtFight and I wasn't expecting the sheer amount of numbers that I was going to have to be doing. So, you know, that was the reason why. I'm so sorry. If you want to discuss your season and how that went, I'd be happy to hear it. I love discussing specifically about ArtFight. It's my favorite event ever, and I can't wait for next year, and I'll be prepping again immediately after this. That's all. Bye!